Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. Tonight is our 122nd episode. Thanks so much for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here in the spirit of community mentorship and, of course, learning. I'm your host, Dave Nava. I'm joined by Geraldine Hall, and I'm a solution engineer at Salesforce and a military trailblazer, as is Geraldine, a military trailblazer. Each week, we invite a co-host, or in this case, co-host, to take part in the conversation so we can leverage their experience, their expertise, and, of course, their unique perspectives. The exciting focus for tonight's session is gain Salesforce experience with Clicked. So if you've heard about Clicked and you want more details on the value they offer to the ecosystem, and or you're looking for hands-on paths to build Salesforce skills, this is the session for you. I'd like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-host panel for tonight: Jeff Sample, Dianne Mishra, Elulu Keith, and Jon Wood. Jeff is the founder and CEO of Clicked. He describes himself as a recovering advertising and marketing technology exec and management consultant who is now focused on education technology and innovation in learning. The truth is, Jeff has created a game-changing interactive learning platform and community, helping thousands of participants develop valuable career skills for free. Dianne is a 4-time certified Salesforce administrator at Restaurant 365. She has over 15 years of nonprofit program management experience and has been a coach assistant for a Clicked business analyst team sprint. Elulu is a 10-time certified associate consultant and Salesforce business analyst at Jaren. She's a former Clicked participant and successfully completed multiple challenges, including obtaining a sprint certificate for Salesforce marketing automation. And Jon is a 4-time certified Salesforce business analyst at Booz Allen Hamilton. He's an Army veteran of 20 years, a certified Scrum Master and Scrum product owner, and has participated in multiple Clicked programs. It is awesome having you all here co-hosting Office Hours with me. Welcome.
Thanks for having us, David. Appreciate it.
David.
Yeah, 100%. It would be great if you could each take a moment to introduce yourselves a little bit further and share your Salesforce stories. Jeff, would you like to lead us off?
Yeah, sure. So love the ad tech exec retiring. So by way of how I got here, as David mentioned, I used to work in management consulting and advertising technology until I realized how much I hated both of those things. I had a real life oh crap moment in October of 2019 where I walked into a sales meeting. 5 minutes into that sales meeting, the whole room went into slow motion. It was like I was getting in a car crash when I realized I spent 12 years of my life doing something I hated. So literally my career was over like that, like imploded like a raging ball of fire. I walked home, my employees went one way and I was like, oh, I feel sick. I went back home and I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I spent 4 months trying to figure out what I want to do next. And what it boiled down to is kind of that problem space, but also just really love mentoring people like Elulu, Dianne, Jon know this very well. I really love supporting people in their careers, but also not really understanding how people pick careers. And also then how you get careers. I think, when we think about, and I know we have a lot of career switchers, and for military, you guys are taking very traditional or untraditional paths, right, into new career paths. But I think when we think through the traditional, go to college or pick what you think you're going to do when you're like 15 or 16, go to college, graduate, get a degree, then get a job. It doesn't work, right? Why would anybody at the age of 15 say, I'm going to be a psychologist, right? Then try to pick a psychology degree, spend 4 years in college getting that degree and then realize they hate it. And so we had kind of a thesis, and in February of 2020, I quit my job in ad tech and wanted to leap into this space. And of course, in February of 2020, we were in a hot job market, and 3 weeks later, we were in a not so hot job market because the world closed. But I was really hell-bent on solving this problem. And the thesis was, how do you know if a career is right for you if you can't experience it in the first place? Going back to that psychology student, why would anybody go through that? And as many of you all know, how do you get the job you want without the experience you need? The gap between, say, certification, let's say in Salesforce, or even a college credential, and employability for employers is very high. So in 2020, we were actually just COVID initiative. So we were COVID initiative supporting a lot of different people, a lot of interns or graduates who had lost their internships. And it really just kind of formulated and grew. And, in 2021, we came to Salesforce after a bit of a pivot. And here we are supporting Salesforce learners and Clicked and serving over 2,500 learners a month. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely been a bumpy couple of years, but no doubt those alternative work experience resources are much appreciated. Those didn't really exist when I was going through my transition, so I had to create those for myself, which takes a lot of time to put together. But having a structured program for that is amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, sure. Awesome.
Who's next?
I can go.
I can go.
So
Jinx.
Oh, you can go. No, you can go. Go ahead.
No, please go, Dan, please.
Okay. So I career transitioned. I was a social worker and a therapist, and I worked for many years in foster care, adoption, delinquency prevention. I served youth down in Florida coming out of the boot camp system, and I ended up my ending part in the nonprofit world was as a regional director for a nonprofit called Build On. They build schools in developing countries. They engage youth in service in the community. So a lot of the projects that I did were with homeless vets in Detroit, and it was great. I was living the best life with teenagers and doing service and all the things that I loved. And then my family came along. I had 2 kids. And I realized very quickly that my family needed me at home, and that I needed to be in a career where I was able to have flexibility in my job. And so when I was returning to the work world, I'm like, what can I do? Where can I still make a difference? Where can I, what career can I go into? And that's when I stumbled across Salesforce from my nonprofit experience. And I'm like, I could do this. I never thought that I would be able to do anything like this in my life, of being able to do anything in tech, or, I never thought that would be possible. And then the gamification of Salesforce, it was fun. And I just really got into it. And I spent, a couple of years like learning, and I got a mentor that works at Salesforce as a solutions engineer, and it mentored me. And so I got really excited about it. And I learned everything that I could, but I didn't have that hands-on experience. I'd go into interviews, I knew what I needed to do, but I'd go into the interviews and I didn't have that experience in the language that I needed. And I came across Clicked right when I had got my certification. I was ready to go, and that experience and being in a sprint with Clicked, which you'll find out more about, gave me language that I was able to use in my interviews. And to see the light up of the face on in my interviews when I started using the language, and people, what, like ears perked up. It was exciting. So now I've been an admin for 2 years at Restaurant 365, made my career transition, and I'm excited to be able to share this with you guys. So.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing your journey. And we're going to dig into it more, specifically about some of the soft skills, some of the language that you developed to explain not only your value, but your value in the context of the Salesforce ecosystem. All great things to dive into. All right. Elulu or Jon?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So, hey everyone, as David said, I am an associate consultant, been working at Gerent for the past 1.5 years as a business analyst, but this all started in February of 2022, where my husband and I both weren't working, funds were getting short. You hear chatter about, the tech industry, you can make a lot of money. And so I had that in the back of my mind. I didn't really know where to start, but as I was looking for a job, this one position that sounded pretty low maintenance, but good pay sounded perfect. But then at the bottom, it said, you must be Salesforce admin certified. And I was like, I've never heard of this before. What is it? It must be good if they're demanding that you have it. So I started Google searching. I double checked again because it came off MLM-y to me when I was researching it, like all the Dreamforce, the animals. I was like, I don't know. I'm like, isn't this a law firm that was posting this job? But anyway, so I, do the YouTube rabbit hole and stuff like that. I was like, I can totally do this. It seems pretty, low barrier entry as far as coming across Trailhead and learning on there. Again, the gamification. It took me a while to realize there's actual like cert paths that you should follow on Trailhead. I was just doing badges that randomly popped up that said they recommend. But so I started studying, and I actually restarted my journey. So that was February. I restarted and got back on track on April because I was pretty isolated. I didn't know how to network yet. I was on my own. You know, you just fall off the routine of studying and not really knowing where it's going to go. So back in April, I got on LinkedIn a little bit more. I managed to get together with a study group that helped me a lot as well. And then I came across Clicked in August that year of 2022. I took my first skills challenge and I was hooked. And all of September, October, and November, I was just like full on. Jeff kept seeing like, oh, you're here again. I'm like, yes, I'm in everything. So it was a great community. I got my admin certification September, and then I was able to be eligible for like the team sprints and stuff, which we'll talk about more. So I really dove into that. And then that December, I got my job. So that's when I got my job landed. It was stressful, but if you really stick to it, there's resources there for you, and you feel great afterwards, but the learning doesn't stop. But anyway, so that's been my journey. And since then I've now kind of transitioned a little bit over to marketing cloud side. So I feel like I'm starting from scratch a little bit because it's a totally different product, but the learning, like I said, never ends.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing your journey. And we'll touch on the individual as well as the team challenges. Before the call, we were kind of chatting about in the military, right? They train you to do individual activities and then they bring you into the team aspect. But sometimes in the civilian world, they just kind of expect you to already know how to work with the team. So where do you get that work experience? And obviously you can get it with Clicked. So we're going to learn about that more. But over to you, Jon. Round us out.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. So a little bit more about me, 20-year Army guy. Joined when I was 17 as an airborne infantry dude. That's what I wanted to do with my life, is go and do fun things I thought were going to be fun. Not always fun, but after 6 or 7 years doing that, I switched over to Intel because that seemed like a better option for my family. I was married, had 2 young children at the time, and then fast forward to about the 18-year mark back in 2022, I had 4 kids, and we had promised the kids, hey, 20 and done, that's all we're going to do. We're going to retire. But really had no idea what I wanted to do after. And I knew I didn't want to trade a job where I was gone all day for another job where I was gone all day. So I just had no idea really what to do. But I was talking to a friend of mine who had found out about Salesforce military. He told me about it. I checked it out, found out about the Hiring Heroes Salesforce program. And after learning that I could have a quality career that I do from home that pays pretty well, I decided, hey, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to figure it out and we're going to do it because this is what's best for all of us. And dove in pretty quickly, found the local Salesforce Saturday group in San Antonio, found out about Military Trailblazer office hours, you guys, found out about Maravis, and then shortly after found out about Clicked. And like we were talking about a little bit prior to the call, me trying to develop a training plan for myself to make sure I did this well. I didn't want to get out of the Army and not have something to fall into. I knew how I could train my skills, on Trailhead and getting certified and all of that, but how do I do collective training, learning how to work on a team on a real Salesforce project so that when I talk to future employers or prospective employers, I could instill confidence in them that I was the right person for the job. So did the Hiring Heroes program fall of last year, September of last year with Booz Allen. They decided to pull me on full time in December. And I've been doing it ever since. It's been really an incredible opportunity because now I'm working on projects with people that I used to work with when I was in the Army, and now I get to help the Army and the DoD at large using Salesforce to solve a lot of the problems that I experienced when I was in the military. So very, very thankful for this opportunity.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing your journey, Jon. That's awesome. And I work with the military still every day, pretty much selling Salesforce to them. So I can definitely identify that there's a lot of use cases out there where we're a good fit. You mentioned several stellar programs, Maravis for one. We're going to have Kate Stoker on from Maravis here in a bit as we kind of continue our practical application series. And Hiring Our Heroes, obviously, if you aren't aware of that, look that up as well. A great way to get experience and also build community. All right, so thank you for all your introductions. If you're just joining or you're just joining for the first time, I always like to briefly explain the purpose of office hours, right? What are we doing here? So these sessions are an informal get-together for gathering with military trailblazers and allies. Everybody's welcome to join, to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding related topics so that we collectively can help us achieve your professional development and career related goals. So for this next hour, this is your opportunity for collaborative mentorship. Everyone on the call is encouraged to step up, speak up, and both ask and answer questions from your perspective, which of course provides an additional diversity of experience to the answers that are given. If you haven't seen the chat window yet, keep an eye on it. Geraldine is helping us out by posting links from primarily LinkedIn, learning, networking, sometimes employment opportunities. So just some things to enhance your learning and your networking. If you have a question at any point during today's or tonight's session, this is your session. Please feel free to ask. If you don't feel comfortable speaking up, no worries, just post it in chat. Geraldine and I will be keeping an eye on that, and we will do our best to monitor both the chat window and raised hands to be looking for the folks that are first, and we'll go in the order of receipt. All right, so finally, tonight's session is being recorded. If you would like to share an attribution-free comment, so something you maybe don't want your boss to know about, just let me know before you throw it out there, and I will make sure that I speak to our video editor and she can take it out of the final recording. All right, we've gotten to the good part where we're going to talk about a variety of topics. Of course, taking breaks as needed for your questions. And really what I wanted to start with was kind of the birth and evolution of the Clicked Learning platform. Where did it come from and why did it come? And I know, Jeff, you talked a little bit about kind of your why when we first started. But could you kind of talk about, like, as an example, when I was putting together military Trailblazer office hours, I knew there was something needed. There was a mentoring component needed. I wasn't quite sure how to bring it about. And so I had a kind of a discovery process and a collaborative process with a bunch of folks to figure out how best to bring that forth. And obviously we're here today because of that. So if you could let us know how you became aware of that hands-on learning experience gap in the ecosystem and kind of the journey to create Clicked in a bit more detail, that'd be great.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so I left my career behind in advertising. I knew nothing about education except for the things that I would have thought we would assume from being somebody who's learned some stuff in my life, right? So I think when COVID hit, and again, like I was hell-bent on just solving this problem, which we kind of assumed was this gap, right? So we'd identified the problem pretty clearly, and we had that connected thesis. We had no idea what the solution would be, of course. And along the way, we basically learned how people learn through design thinking, which I think when we go back, I think me not coming from education really helped us build the learning products. I think Elulu, Dianne, and Jon would attest it's a little different in the way that you learn. And it was because we listened, right? We literally listened to what people were giving us in terms of feedback and all. Even where we started was, we're just like, well, all these people have either like lost their jobs or lost their internships. Let's get their mind off of this, right? And let's just give them an opportunity to build new skills. So that's kind of how we started. And that was the V1. And we just cobbled together. I don't even remember what it was built off of. But we let people basically, give an idea of a project they've always wanted to work on, right? Like a passion project. And then people didn't have a passion project, but like, I just want to work on something. We're like, great. I think we had a couple of theses. One is like experience trumps all, right? Like we all know, like you can learn a lot of stuff on Trailhead, but what we learn in our day-to-day is actually accrued through a multitude of experiences and application, right? So we had that core thesis, like, let's just let people learn. And we also know that team, like the workplace, it's multiplayer, right? You have to work together in teams. You're working with multiple people. It's not happening in a silo. So those were kind of like the two fundamentals: is we want people to experience this and we want people to work in teams. So we put these people in teams, and I hated it because they were working on these passion projects, which actually created some friction. And it didn't create really a safe environment. There was some competition. And I think it was like our first real big aha moment was that we need to create a really safe and fun environment, right? And that kind of sounded a little silly, but I think Dianne, Elulu, and Jon would attest is that's kind of the secret of Clicked, quite honestly, is not just the learning that happens, but the environment that creates around that. And community is a big component of that, right? Like David, you know that as somebody who manages community, you can open up all these new points of conversation, right, with people who can like gravitate towards these specific things. So we'd run a bunch of tests and it was taking too long. And I'd say by around September, October, we were kind of just in a trudge, really. We're like, we don't know what this is. We kept running these 3 or 4 week things. We're like, we kind of hate this. And then I said, screw it. We're going to run a crazy test. And it was based off of, hilariously enough, I used to work in a native advertising ad template where we just put some things together and we're just like, people go work on this. And it was called Creating Personas as a Product Manager for Airbnb. And it was a 1 hour challenge. And Elulu has mentioned these skills challenges. And we just put these people in there like, let's go have them learn. It'll be like a mini hackathon and we'll see what happens. And we made it really fun. We had a lot of music and they shared their work and everybody's like, we're just learned a ton through the feedback, right? Like Elulu, I always gravitate towards one of those things you mentioned was like this rapid iteration of feedback that was happening. And it actually turns out that that's how everybody learns. It turns out that everybody learns just through feedback. So what we said as being crazy people were like, how do we scale feedback, right? And then that was when we came across all the different components. We're like, well, skills challenges can be this vehicle into team sprints, and team sprints can be this vehicle into quests. And if we can scale feedback and build what's called self-efficacy, is people just slowly going down the funnel, but a little bit faster here at Clicked, is can we create basically this multimodal learning product where people can kind of go at their own pace as well, right? Like if people just want to do some skills challenges, they can do some skills challenges. If people want to jump in and do a bunch of team sprints, they could do that. And it turns out it worked really well, right? So by the end of 2020, we had basically built it and we're like, this seems kind of special. And then in 2021, we just kept iterating. We started selling to like small, medium enterprises because we also are crazy people again, and we wanted to make this free, right? I think the other thing is we were really hell bent on making it free. For whether that was a good decision or a bad decision, I still don't know. But Jon and Dianne and Elulu are the benefactors of that, and some others on the call. Is because what we also realized, David, is, Salesforce spends a lot of money on Trailhead and certifications. And a big goal of that is to get people jobs. But what we know is it doesn't get them all the way, right? So it doesn't get them all the way to what employers need, which is that on-the-job experience. And then the other thing is, I used to work at Deloitte. I ran a business practice. And at Deloitte, we would spend, I won't say the actual amount, lots of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to train and hire and recruit people that weren't ready and would sit on the bench for 3 months, 6 months, right? So we're like, well, let's go sell to these 2 people and see what happens. And we went through like some small, medium enterprises first. And then I think Salesforce and tech ecosystems was a great fit for not just our product, because of some of the nuances in it, but also because of the types of roles, David, right? Like these non-technical roles and or technical roles. And one of the really cool things, going back to the, how do you know if a career is right for you if you can't experience it in the first place? There's all these different paths that are aligned with Salesforce, right? You can use the tool and find a path, right? Like whether it's maybe more on like the sales side, right? I think some of the coolest things is, and I've seen some people coming through, particularly hiring our heroes who have gone through some of these different paths and gone through some of them and have seen like, I really love presenting and talking to people, and might have thought they were going to be an admin and like, no, I need to do accounts, right? I need to do sales. Yeah. Or people who thought they were admin focused and like, well, actually, I'd really love the BA side of that. Or maybe they skewed even more technical, right? I really have these dev chops or data chops, et cetera. And I think one of the things I love about that is I also used to, in my ad tech, I was a specialist for what was Google ecosystems, and I saw that. I was an engineer, then I was somehow cut into strategy and sales. And I think having those tools allows people to go through all the moments and find their moments that clicked. So pretty crazy journey to get to there. And I think, in 2021, I had a kid and I was like, screw it, enough screwing around. Let's go switch and sell to the big corporate ecosystems. And then we were able to. So we sold them to Salesforce, and then we sold them to IBM shortly thereafter, and have been running those 2 programs since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I appreciate the context, kind of the journey, how initially you just kind of threw some things at the wall and saw what stuck. And then through iteration and through, like, use your words, rapid feedback, we're able to develop a cohesive kind of test drive scenario where you can test drive multiple different career paths very, very rapidly. And that's one of the things that you have to do, right? And most people get that test drive experience through informational interviews, calling up folks and hitting them up on LinkedIn and having those 50-minute chats, which are awesome, but they're not as good as getting your hands, on a project and actually working with it in a variety of different roles. In my personal experience, Yeah, I mean, I volunteered at a nonprofit, a couple different nonprofits over the course of a year. And while I got amazing experiences, it took me a year to figure out what I did want and did not want to do. But with Click, you can do that much more rapidly. So that's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. I know we mentioned the team component because I think, you mentioned the soft skills piece, David, right? I think a lot of times the hands-on experience, what the actual problem actually gets a little bit missed, quite honestly. And I even see this with people in education is they don't fully understand what the problem space is. And particularly for Salesforce, there is definitely like that hands-on application of understanding how you might solve a problem. But the big, and I'll go to the mug, the big problem is actually business context, right? Like, it's like, how would you work with a client to actually like solve this problem? What is the problem, and what are all the things that might go wrong during that implementation that you would need to solve together as a team, right? So we'd always kind of like grappled on like business context, teamwork, communication, collaboration, because those are the things we hear in the labor market, right? And I think like not even just the hands-on experience, but how have you worked together with a team? How would you solve X problem? And you need to build in some adaptability, right? Like, I love this about people who come from military, right? The ability to be adaptable is particularly like a skill that's ingrained, but not for a lot of people who have gone through like a strict, rigid curriculum, right? And that kind of gets lost, right? I think a lot of people get uncomfortable with our joke of it depends, but once they start to embrace it, it really kind of like unlocks the opportunity of like, I guess I just have to solve this problem and figure it out. And by the way, here's all these buttons and features and things that are a conduit for me to potentially solve this problem.
Yeah, flexibility, definitely a critical, what I call meta skill. Dianne, Elulu, Jon, I want to hear from you. So as ambassadors of the Click program, if you could share what initially drew you to Click, like how'd you find out about it? What got you kind of hooked in? And then what aspects of the platform did you find the most appealing or beneficial? And I know we've talked about in brief, like, shadow sessions, skill challenges, mini sprints, quests. So feel free to dive into those categories of learning and kind of explain what they are, if you would, and which ones you found the most valuable. Go ahead, Lulu.
So for me, right off the bat, I was like, this is free. Like, I was shocked. And
Really
like I was
hard.
explaining earlier on the call, it was a great decision, Jeff. Earlier on the call, my husband and I weren't working, and we were dwindling down on the savings, and you want to upskill, but you're limited by your options. So that was just like an amazing opportunity. I just could not turn it down. So that was like the first thing that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Why not? It was the fact that it was free, and then also that it did offer, which Jeff was speaking to, a lot of the hands-on learning and the getting feedback, because and that is the environment that I learned the best in, even though, the gamification of Trailhead was great, but I need to engage with people. I need to like stumble across different building blocks and get that feedback from people who are actually doing these jobs in the real world. And that's how I like grasp the concepts the most. So those were the big ones for me, was that hands-on, the feedback, and that it was free.
Free is good.
It's great.
Yeah, that's what turned me on to Trailhead and military, the military Trailblazer community as well. So, Dianne, Jon, what about you?
I think for me, when I came across it, was I think a mentor through LinkedIn had mentioned it to me, and that's how I got involved. But my very first sprint, and a sprint is where you're working with a team for a few weeks to have deliverables, and it was a Salesforce admin, and I believe business analyst sprint was the one that I was on. And everybody on my team, it was we're working together to have these deliverables, and everybody on my team, I realized that everybody had all these different things that they were doing. They were looking for jobs, they were interviewing, they were trying to gain this experience, they had personal things that were going on. So I think working with that team through all of, supporting them and their learning, and also them supporting me, like it was great to be able to work on that team and understand this is real life. In my job now, everybody has everything. They're being pulled in 20 different directions. They have their families, they have their kids, they got, health problems or whatever's going on with them, but they also have all these demands in their job, and everybody having competing priorities. And so being able to have that experience and like, hey, this is like real life. Like, how do you navigate through that and still deliver on what you need to do in your job? So I think that was one of the most valuable things that I've gained. I've also really enjoyed the shadow sessions where you have an expert that, coach that's going through and working live in front of you, and being able to see an expert and how they work, and opened my eyes a lot to things that I might be able to do that I didn't think that I would ever be able to do. And then piggybacking on what you were talking about, of this ecosystem is so huge, and there's all these different things that you can do, data analyst or marketing or any of these different jobs that you can go into. And the military, those that have served that I work with now, that have actually gone through a lot of the Hiring Heroes programs that I've come in contact with, are the hardest working people that I work with. They're dependable. They are amazing to work with because of the experiences that you all have had. Are great team members to work with. So it's great to be able to have that flexibility, and Clicked has given me the ability to see, what do I want to do in my career. It's amazing. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm glad you touched on sprints, because the team dynamic is definitely extremely important. One of the common, I guess, fears that I hear is, from folks that are thinking about transitioning into tech as well. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't know everything. There's so much to learn, not realizing, of course, that you don't have to know everything. It's impossible, for one thing. But two, you're going to be part of a team, regardless of what you're doing. In some way, shape, or form, you'll be part of a team. You can rely on your teammates and them on you for that, for access to the knowledge, as well as the resources to find the knowledge. And that was a big eye opener for me as I joined my first company, was tackling this multi-million-dollar, the largest project to date at the company that I was just hired into right out of the military. And I was thrown in as a junior consultant, and I'm building a full-scale implementation with my teammates, and being able to leverage them for expertise, but not only the help that I received from them, but the learning that I was able to get by working in a team was dramatically upscaled from what it would have been had I just been building something by myself. Thanks for going into that. What about you, Jon?
Yeah, thanks. I think for me, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but just on my own development plan, like, hey, if I'm going to do this, like my April, she's stayed home and take care of the kids, like since we started having kids. So I knew that I needed to do this well, or my family was going to be without a paycheck. So when I was looking at my personal training plan for getting ready to get out and get into a Salesforce career, I noticed the gap between Trailhead, playgrounds, doing things on my own, and landing that job, doing things on a team and being able to see what it's actually like doing. And that's another huge part of it that Jeff brought up earlier, is like, I wanted to see what it was like. Is this something that I enjoy doing? Can I do this, like operating with these people on a team and all of that? And then so both of those aspects, being able to get the experience doing it as a collective team, and seeing if it's something that I enjoy doing and foresee myself doing for the long term. I wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to do that. As far as the experience that I think helped me out the most was the admin sprint, or there's an admin business analyst sprint that I was on. And that was the first look I had at all the connective tissue on a Salesforce project. Like, a Salesforce project isn't just going into an org and building things, but as far as talking with the client and understanding what they're trying to say, but they don't know how to say because they don't speak Salesforce. They don't know everything that's in that could be done on Salesforce. They just know the problem that they have, right? And being able to walk through that and turn that into stories, and working with your team to break that up into sprints, and developing products to brief back and present back and get feedback on, and all of that really helped me see, okay, this is what a Salesforce project would actually look like from A to Z, from the very beginning to the very end, of solving a problem for somebody in a meaningful, powerful way, but doing it in a collaborative environment. In the military, I can work on a military team. We all communicate with the same words and lingo and phrases, but now I'm working with people that don't have the same military experience I do. I don't have the experience that they do working in the corporate world. So seeing what that was like, and being, okay, like, this is a space that I can operate in. These people are awesome. And having the opportunity to try that out was hugely helpful for me. to build the confidence I had in my ability to one, do the job, but then also when I was talking with the prospective businesses I was interviewing with for Hiring Our Heroes, knowing that I could speak directly to the problems and issues that come up on teams, and how I could relate the experience that I had to solving the problems and fulfilling the role that they're interviewing me for, right? So incredible experience.
Yeah, and that's a couple huge points. One, generating that alternative work experience gives you something to talk about at an interview, and I think to quote Diane's comment earlier, provides you with the language that you need for you to make sense to them, and vice versa. But the other critical thing that you mentioned was you could see yourself doing it for the long term. And one of the unifying, I guess, challenges that I have heard from both folks that are leaving the military as well as folks that are not in the military, never were, they're just transitioning into a new industry, is risk, right? It's a very much a risk calculation. Do I enter this foreign, strange ecosystem that is Salesforce? What happens if I spend all this time learning, these skills, and then come to find out 6 months to a year later, it goes away, or I'm not, the job, the industry, whatever, because it happens, or I'm no longer interested in that. And with Salesforce, obviously, with all those different career paths, it's not a factor. Yes, the ecosystem has changed. Jobs have gone away. Other ones have been created. But those core set of skills that you develop through programs like Clicked will see you through a wide variety of different roles, so that you will see yourself enjoying your job for the long term, whatever that job happens to be called, whatever the company that it's at. Those skills are unifying resources that you can rely on. All right, we are just past the halfway mark. So what we typically do at this point is we jump on a group photo. So if you'd like to participate in the group photo, totally optional. Go ahead and share your video. And if you'll put a pause on the comments, because the comments cover up folks' face, and we want to see everyone's face. And if you don't want to turn your camera, no worries. I've had those days too. I'm wearing sweats right now, so I don't tell that to my coworkers, but I usually have like a nice polo on and a pair of shorts and flip-flops. But if you're having one of those days, you can go ahead and keep your camera off, and I will give you a count of 3. Let me grab my tool here. All right, and when you're ready, 1, 2, 3. All right, all set. I think most folks had their eyes open, so that's good. Let me switch my screens back around here. All right, so we've talked tangentially about it, and I want to dive into a bit more detail now. Exploring career paths in the Salesforce ecosystem, how does Click help you do that? We know that it does through listening to everyone's experiences, but that is, like, when I talk to folks, the two biggest things that they are worried about is, and the number one is, how do I choose, right, what path I want to go down? Because there's so many different paths. Different companies will call the same job different things. Different companies will put together 2 jobs and call it something completely new. And so it's really, really difficult to get a sense for what's out there and whether or not you have the experience, one, to go after that role, or even would it be interesting to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. I think so. Early on, even in 2020, honestly, David, we kind of made a calculated effort to like remove career paths as any type of label we would use, right? So we were just doing skills things, right? So we even said, when one of our tests, going back to 2020, we actually just ran we called it a product, not a product manager. We called it a product quest. And then we said, these are the different skills that we think we're going to learn. Nobody signed up for it because everybody wanted to be a product manager. But it's still, and it was a takeaway for us, but what it still boiled down to is, and I think I see a lot of stuff about like admin developer and admin developer or something like that. What it boils down to is some company is going to require you to do a set of tasks. And of those tasks, you need some types of skills. All right. So a big reason why skills challenges actually exist is so that we can actually break that down quite a bit. Right. So we could see if people actually like doing user stories, or if people actually like doing flows, or if people want to do VS Code or SQL, right? Like starting to get people not just aware of the things they like, but also the things that they are good at, right? We don't do a ton of career guidance stuff here at Click, but I think what we try to, we're starting a little bit, but we don't do a ton of that because we want people to first off be aware of the things that they like and they don't like, because you need to build like this persona of skill sets that represent not just your interests, but the things that you're good at, because that's what employers want, right? They want some combination of, okay, well, this person is good at these things, but this person also likes doing those things. And when you get both of those things, right, it's like magic, right? So we always focus that. So it's one of the reasons why we did the admin and analyst sprint pretty early on, is because we were able to blend a bunch of different skill sets for people to say, all right, well, going back to the, I remember, I think Malcolm Sims was somebody who went through Hiring Heroes, and I always remember that he came in here and he was admin. He's like, nope, sales, accounts, BA. He was like totally like that consultant type of role. And those are the types of exposures we want, right? Somebody going through and having experience and having kind of like their moment. It clicked in terms of the things they're good at, the things that they like, to start building that. So how we break it down into career paths is we obviously still do career paths because, even on Salesforce's site, it says there's BA stuff, there's admin stuff. So we have admin sprints, we have BA sprints, we have developer sprints, we even introduced a designer sprint, which was awesome. And then we let people, kind of see what it is that they naturally sort of gravitate into. And then we have like our consultant quests with Deloitte, which are really a little bit different of a skill set, right? A little bit more sales, a little bit more direct problem solving than if you were going into, say, a partner. So we try to create a variety of experiences that people can do pretty low risk, quite honestly, right? Going back to what Jon said, something that can be low risk, but really accelerate as well. Part of the reason we call them sprints is this goes fast, right? It is definitely challenging, and that's on purpose, but also we want people to be able to make decisions about their life in a relatively short period of time. And a way that we do that is by, focusing skills first. Yes, putting a career path on it, but letting people really reflect on the things that they liked. And I think what we naturally also see is in the team environment, some people maybe gravitate towards being a project manager. Maybe some people don't want to talk to the fake stakeholder. Maybe some people just want to do the admin side of things, and they kind of like organically solve themselves, which is kind of cool to actually see sometimes without a lot of us helping them. And I think that's a great way for people to be reflective and really gravitate in those interviews and the types of roles. I don't know, maybe Elulu, Dianne, and Jon can kind of say the types of roles that they think are fit based off of their experience here at Click. So definitely try to do a wide range of skills. Again, big reason why we did the skills challenges and the shadow sessions, but putting in those different variety of team sprints and quest experiences to really have it all come together.
Yeah, I love the fact that you found that folks gravitated toward ideally the paths that fit with their interest areas and their skill sets, and that by removing labels, you kind of gave them the freedom to do that. That's really interesting. And I actually hadn't heard that approach before, because most folks come in and they're like, well, I think I want to do this, but we often don't know what we want to do. We have an idea, and it's usually proven wrong through these experiences that we partake in. Yeah. So at the outset, just being like, hey, don't worry about it. Just do this, do that, and see what shakes out. That makes a lot of sense. And I'd love to hear, Dianne, Lulu, Jon, if you could talk about kind of your aha moment, whether it came in Clicked or before Clicked or after Clicked, and how Click contributed to that in helping you choose your path. That'd be great. Anyone can go first.
I'll go. So originally I was thinking that I wanted to go into like data analysis. I started taking Python courses and that type of thing. And then I ended up really enjoying the back end of Salesforce and understanding, like, solving business problems and through automations. And I felt like that was the way that I could make, I guess, the best impact, or the most impactful for me. And that Clicked helped me with that, of like having the being able to look at all these different careers, and with the the other partners that they have, with the data analysts and those type of things, like what career do I want to do, what do I want to be in. So having all those different experiences and being able to look at that has been probably the biggest thing for me with Clicked, is where it's like really been helpful to me. I never thought that I would be able to do like developer engineer type thing, and being able to understand what is VS VS Code and, like all these different tools that I have now been introduced into, SOQL and SOQL, or however you pronounce it. But it's been helpful to me to know, like, hey, I can do this stuff, and I have a supportive community, and the ecosystem's incredible anyway. And having this additional support through Clicked has been amazing for me and my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's an amazing opportunity to get to work with some of the partners that you mentioned, and just being able to kind of step outside of the boundaries that we set for ourselves. Because you said you would never imagine that you'd be using tools like VS Code and SOQL or SOQL, and having a resource that lets you kind of transcend that and just try it out and see, if it works out for you. And in this case, it did. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Jon, what about you?
Yeah. So one of the things that was interesting for me, Jeff kind of hit it on the head. I didn't know it was by intention. Now I know that it was, where you kind of put on this team and no one describes all the different roles that the team should have. It's just like, here's a group of people and we have this end state that we want you to get to. And then you kind of hop on the team and you just kind of start talking like, hey, who wants to do this, or who likes that, or how do you guys think we should approach this problem set? We have 3 days till we have to do this thing. Who wants to take lead on that? And just seeing how, agile teams, people kind of self-organize. And so seeing that happen in real life as a Army guy who's used to everything being, very, organized and strategic, and you stay in your lane, seeing a team kind of figure out where they want to be, but then also being willing to kind of help out and flex. Because, some people have things going on. It's happening, in real life. It's not a paid thing. So they have work and school, etc. To come up with something that actually, answers the mail, and it's done on time, on target, was very eye-opening for me to say, okay, this is like a flexible space that I can get comfortable in. And then also, I think like the aha for me was when I was doing the Deloitte sprint, and we actually had, consultants from Deloitte coming in, and in my opinion, they're being very honest. They're giving direct feedback, tearing us up a little bit, but it was great because it was based off of real experience that they have, the clients that they work with every single day, and the feedback that they would give someone on the team to make sure that the products we were producing were up to speed for their standards. And that after we get that first face punch, if you will, the team kind of going back and working together to come up with something positive that worked and met all those requirements, and coming back the next time and, okay, yeah, pretty good job. Might want to change this and that, but say, okay, like we can actually do this. And it was a very positive experience to see the whole team kind of evolve from, these, kind of folks just figuring things out to working cohesively in a way that met the standard. And we got, some pretty good thumbs up at the end there from the team at Deloitte. So really great.
It's cool you get to witness kind of the team development process, the whole storming, norming, performing evolution. That's fantastic.
And it happens quick, so it's like 5 weeks of storming. Go for it, Elulu.
So for me, it worked out just as they designed it. My exposure getting into this was I was studying, or I had just gotten the Salesforce admin certification. Therefore, I will be a Salesforce admin. It just matches. That was the path. If anything else comes up, sure, great. And then, as you're getting into these experiences and you're networking with other people that you get teamed up with, I got more understanding of like a business analyst type position or consultant type position. And then also with the opportunity to present each time as well within Click, that's like, I highly recommend if you do a Clicked experience, please go on the stage and like just speak and just get used to talking and interacting and getting the feedback. It really solidified my understanding. And as Dianne mentioned earlier as well, it allowed me to know exactly how to speak to my interviewers and stuff in the future. So that helped me realize like, oh, I like being in front of the client a lot. It also came, I don't know, maybe you are, Jeff, aware of this or not, but well, at least the part some people don't realize, but the people that are in these teams, some of them are totally brand new, and some of them actually have quite a bit of experience, and some of them already have jobs. So I remember one group that I was in, one girl was already working, and she actually got almost the entire team interviews with her company. And it was like, oh, I never thought to even apply to this type of position. So just that exposure to not just the coaches that have experience, but the people you're working alongside with as well. You'll get paired up oftentimes with people too who already have jobs. Like, I know I'm already working, but I still participate in as many clicked experiences as I can, because I still like that learning model as well. So it was very much just kind of organic, just what I was exposed to and what I started to see through project opportunities to practice things from start to finish, discovery to solution to deliverables, and just kind of gravitating towards things I just naturally enjoy.
Yeah, that's cool, because it sounds like these are kind of incubators for mentorship relationships to form, having, you know, folks that are skilled and folks that are brand new, and both mentoring up and mentoring down provides those opportunities, which is of course beneficial for everybody. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, one of the reasons why, you know, for us to be able to even do this for free, one, it needs to scale, right? Like, it needs to scale. We need to work with big partners like Salesforce and IBM to make it cost efficient, right? Like, Salesforce foots our bill, right? So to do that, we've got to be able to make sure that there's the scale to that. But one of the special things about Clicked is, you know, we don't teach our Clicked, right? We are very much opportunity builders, right? We give everyone an opportunity to learn, and we create and facilitate an environment to which fosters incredible learning. But the learning really happens organically from each other, right? Like, Elulu hit this, and again, you probably didn't know, we do stagger this on purpose, right? We put people, a lot of times, sometimes not, but it's mostly with people who are more proficient, right? To help pull the people along. One of the reasons the Click community has been able to thrive for 2 years and continue to output people is we get people at the top of the funnel. They come and or they stay, but the people who are in the mid funnel and the lower funnel are bringing them along for the ride, right? They're passing on the shared knowledge and shared learning, because it really is how kind of work environments work anyways, right? It was a big reason why we kind of brought in team assistants like Dianne as well to help pull along some of the friction points. Like, getting people in teams can be tough. I think Elulu, Dianne, maybe even Jon, you guys have had some bad team interactions, and that happens in life as well. But this is also the part of it being a free program, is sometimes people take advantage of a free program, right? So you get those team assistants to really kind of start, which is like a really hard process of like, what do we do first, right? Like, once you get past that, what do we do first, and you can power through that first kind of initial milestone, it pulls together, and it pulls together really fast. But we're kind of highlighting a lot of the by design nuances of why Clicked works, quite literally, right? Like, a lot of the small things that our team has put into very intentionally over a period of 2 years to design a learning product that's just very different and kind of requires big partners like Salesforce and IBM to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we've got time for a couple more questions. And so, you know, I'd love to talk about the transition after Clicked. So you've got this structured learning process, and they go through these learning challenges, shadowing and sprints and skills challenges. What happens when they graduate from Clicked? What does that transition look like? And obviously it's different for everyone. So, you know, at the enterprise level, Jeff, if you could talk about kind of if there is a standard transition or just what the trends have been. And then maybe Dianne, Elulu, Jon, if you could just talk about your specific transition from Clicked to your first role and what that looked like.
Yeah, I'm laughing because Elulu comes back for more punishment. So I think for us, really, we are very much. It's a great learning product, but we are focused on like new entry level talent. But we do want people who are early career, right? Like, we often say that we're I won't say a cure. Cure is a strong word. I guess I'll say, because I can't think of a better word. A cure for imposter syndrome, right? Like, I think the fact is, when people start day one, there's a couple of things that happen. If you haven't been there and done there before, you're going to have a high level of anxiety to do a task. And the second piece that makes this substantially worse is you're going to get paid for it. So what we often forget about this, and I think particularly people in my spaces, there's very much an earn to learn mentality. But if you come in there with like such a wide gap, that earning can really become a problem, right? Like the actual introduction of money without creating kind of this safe space makes imposter syndrome substantially worse. And we've had a couple of people coming through our programs who have said, I had a job, I lost my job, I came back, and then I was like fixed, and now they're kind of thriving. So we tend to focus on that. We do like to get people still in that early career stage. Funding, again, coming from Salesforce makes, limited amount of people we can support. So that's kind of where we're at, but I'll pass it off to Elulu because I know she comes back and loves to skill up.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, at least for me in my mind. I don't know if I'll ever stop doing these challenges or shadowing and stuff like that, especially because of working in the Salesforce ecosystem and how often they are changing products and updating different things about what's being offered. Like I know I'll be on the data cloud consultant shadow that's coming up, and then there's like this other AI one. Like there's always an entry level aspect, regardless of how many years you've been working in the ecosystem, of the new things that are coming up. And this is like my go-to place of like, I'm still nervous about the product. I don't really quite know it, but I know this is like my go-to place where I can learn, upskill, network with people who might have a little bit more experience on it than I do if I'm paired up with someone like that. And have, be able to get some hands-on practice with it before I'm like put in front of a client at my company. So, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be like completely gone from it, but definitely like on like the admin skills. Yeah, like the admin skills, like those initial things, I do feel more confident on that. But whenever I want to like tune up or just learn about something new that's been launched, I definitely like to come back.
Yeah,
and just a real quick comment. Sorry to step on you, but I think it's important because imposter syndrome was mentioned, and it's a real thing. It's a big thing. It gets a lot of folks. But what Elulu said really resonated. And I just want to paraphrase: wherever you are in your career journey, whether you've been in the ecosystem for a week, a year, a month, what have you, you're still kind of always new, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's always changing. Like I was new today because even though I've been in it for 5 years, because I was tackling something I'd never touched before, and I was like, God, I'm dumb. And it was a painful experience, and I felt like a newbie because, to Elulu's point, that's the nature of our business, is we are always going to feel like we're brand new because things are changing so fast, and that's normal, and that's okay. So, but go ahead, Dianne. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I was going to say too, is that imposter syndrome is like it's ever changing, and you think you know what you're doing, and then there's like something comes across that you haven't experienced before, and that has been really helpful with Collective, giving you that confidence and that confidence boost. For me also, I've transitioned into a team assistant and helping to give back and mentor to people that are coming into this career changing and coming into the system. It has been for me, like that transition has been great, to be able to give back in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it too. Jon, what about you, sir?
For me, so I guess a little bit of context. When I finished most of my Clicked experiences, I was still preparing, full speed ahead for hiring our heroes. So a couple of practical things. Clicked does provide the format for how to add Clicked experiences to your LinkedIn profile and your resume, which is awesome. One thing that I did do is, something that's probably been passed around the military community, but making sure that you build out STAR template points of conversation for everything that you have on there, which is situation, task, action, result. And if you want to add the I, it's for insights, things that you learned, shows that you are able to look back on experiences and draw, some value out of those moving forward. Also practice telling your story. There's someone I spoke with early on in my journey that challenged me with the 100 call challenge, and it was pretty much reach out on LinkedIn to folks that are in the same career field that you're in. Maybe if you're prior Army, see if they're prior Army as well. There's LinkedIn, you can filter all of that. You just ask them for 10, 15 minutes of their time so you can hear how they got where they are, ask for advice, things like that, and an opportunity for you to tell your story as well, which helps prepare you for when you actually sit down in front of a hiring manager, and you've already said this story 100 times, you've had a chance to perfect it. You know what to bring up, what not to bring up. Things like that. But also, like, to be honest, the job that I have right now was due, in fact, to that 100 call challenge. I spoke with one person who recommended another person who recommended another person who said, hey, when your Hiring Heroes thing kicks off, let me know. And I did, but his company actually pulled out of the Salesforce, Hiring Heroes at Salesforce program, but they said, we're going to pull out, but we still want Jon. So it was pretty awesome. So I can't overemphasize the importance of after clicked and you get some experience and you fine tune, how you're going to communicate who you are and the value that you bring to talk to people, and prepare by just telling people your story and communicating how you bring value to the team.
Yeah.
Yep. Got to have that elevator pitch, and you absolutely have to build your network, and the 100 call challenge will definitely help you to do that. All right, we are out of time, folks. I was going to ask one more question, but we'll go ahead and end on time so I can respect everyone's time. And I'm sure Jeff will have to ask you to come back, because I know the platform's always changing, and
Sure.
you guys will be innovating and iterating well into the future. So I'd love to do a part 2 at some point, because I've got about 2 pages of questions I didn't get a chance to ask.
Done and done.
Awesome. But before we do close, I just wanted to thank everyone for spending the past hour with us, and especially thank you, Jeff, Dianne, Elulu, and Jon, for hosting tonight's session. It's been awesome learning about Clicked and getting each of your individual experiences as you've gone through and experienced the program and continue to experience it, and the value that it's brought you in your career development then and now. So thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having us, David.
Yeah, my pleasure. We'll see everybody in a few weeks. And in the meantime, please stay safe and have a great rest of your Tuesday evening.
Have a good night.
Hey,
See everybody.
everyone.
Thanks.